Hello, gorgeous soul. I thought I would check in with you and have a little conversation about this supremely powerful new moon in Cancer and solar eclipse. It is a very important mark in the history of this year. If you think back to the full moon eclipse in Cancer around the 12th of January, that was the time when we were all hearing about the spreading of the pandemic. It was a peak when we all started to get familiar with the sense that this pandemic was on its way. Although, nobody was that alarmed then, but it definitely was a starting point. Newspapers were mentioning it, people were talking about it, it started to splinter out. And I believe that this new moon and solar eclipse is going to be a marker for us, a very clear marker about where this pandemic is going. And I also believe by the end of the month, we're going to know. There is a kind of full moon eclipse. Some people say it's not eclipse. I think it is an eclipse of the full moon in Sagittarius, and that is going to again bring about another peak. Also at the end of June we have Jupiter and Pluto coming together. Another massive unusual happening which is going to bring about change. Now a lot of people have said, oh, it's a really negative thing because Jupiter spreads viruses, and obviously Pluto is, the Lord of transformation, life, death and rebirth. But I always say, when I listen to astrologers talking about Jupiter in that way, they're saying, oh well, in this instance it's not positive. I would say, there's a bigger picture going on. And that bigger picture is about the massive change we're going through in society. Okay, that Jupiter and Pluto is in Capricorn, but we are heading into a time where we've already got Saturn in Aquarius, where there is a huge shift heading towards air energy, and specifically heading towards Aquarius energy. And what is Aquarius energy? It's all about an equal society. It's all about us being one. It's all about an egalitarian society. And we are going through a huge shift. I can't even tell you, it's like in hundreds of years, we're never going to go through such a big cultural change as we are approaching. I don't think we're going to see the full magnitude of it probably until 2024, 2025, but right now that shift has begun, and boy are we feeling it. We are feeling that intensity, and at the moment it's very dramatic. And I have to say, solar eclipses are very dramatic, so expect more drama, and there's a lot of pain. It's like we've burst the boil and the pain is coming out, and we're seeing the poison that we've all been sitting on, and we're having an opportunity to heal, to reset and to move forward in the most extraordinary way. But obviously, in times of rebirth, it's not an easy process, but it will be one that's worthwhile. And the most important thing is we have to carry a lot of love in our hearts and love each other and try to find our common ground through this, while also heading towards the truth, heading towards the reality that we have to, as humans, come to a point where we are all equal, where it is a fairer society, and we're on our way to that. Anyway, this new moon in Cancer is on an individual level. It might be quite triggering when it comes to our sense of security. Now, I just go back one step. Just before that, though, we do have the Sun and the North Node coming together on around the 20th, and that is very powerful because that is about the North Node, which has also gone into air. It's all about our future karma, the evolution of our spirit, and where we're going. So it's like, and the Sun is like, going to give us a confidence boost. It's going to give us a brightness, a bit of optimism, and flashes of where we're going. And that's going to be really helpful. Now, it's in Gemini, and Gemini is all about this, thinking, being able to detach from our emotions, and yet we have this eclipse in Cancer, which is very personal. It's all about our sense of security. A lot of things, I don't know about you, but a lot of things I've done in my life are connected to my insecurity. The majority of mistakes I would say that I've made in my life and painful experiences I've been in are to do with, my insecurity in the past and not feeling lovable, not feeling good enough, and not feeling safe. And, this new moon it's about rebirth, so it's about us finding our security, but it may bring up a lot of emotions. But the good news is the North Node is whispering in our ear and enabling us to detach a little bit, to move through this in a new way, to understand that we're on a journey and that we deserve to love ourselves, we deserve to be safe, we deserve to be in a new world ourselves where we feel safe and secure and equal to everybody else. That is generally the message of that. Now, I have to say that there is a I can never say that word, quincunx, sounds rude, doesn't it? Quincunx going on. Now, traditionally, the explanation for a quincunx is you feel you're between the rock and a hard place. So you feel that, you feel a bit restricted. But it's also a restriction that enables you to see how to get to freedom, yeah? So although Saturn isn't exactly being helpful, I believe, and don't forget, we're in full-on retrograde season, so we're looking at the past, we're healing the past, we're dealing with the past. Venus is retrograde. And we're looking at the past to go forward. And a lot of our self-restrictions, restrictions that we're on a personal level, we're going to have the key after this eclipse to come through and free our spirit and our soul. Now, of course, always remember that with an eclipse, it's not instant. We don't get all the information straight away. A lot of the information comes later. It unfurls. It delivers itself to us. It's all about, there's a veil of secrecy over what's happening, but it doesn't mean that we're not evolving underneath the surface. So individually and globally, we're going through a change. The change is happening. All the little sprouts are sprouting underneath the surface. And this is a very important eclipse as we come through that. And then back to my original, I think I've lost my way in this conversation, but at the end, we have this Jupiter and Pluto shift. And the point is, we are going through an ending and a change and very intense times, very uncomfortable times, very polarized times. But Jupiter will eventually bring the reward. This is why I don't agree with some astrologers that say, no, it's negative. No, I disagree. I would say it's, Jupiter, like the rest of us, is going through Pluto's tunnel, but will come out with expansion. And Jupiter is all about equality and acceptance and loving and generosity and seeing the bigger picture. So there is a bigger picture within this eclipse. On a personal level, in fact, on a universal level, we might see some major weather event, for instance, possibly connected to water and the sea, because something extreme, because everything's being shaken up at the moment. But we are coming through it much more secure, not necessarily straight away, but ultimately much more secure. Now let me talk about Venus retrograde within this as well. Venus is going retrograde, so there's a lot of temptation. Well, quite a few planets are going retrograde. There's a lot of temptation maybe to think about the past and see it with rose-tinted glasses, to think, oh, I know. I think, I want to get back with my ex or this, that and the other. Be very cautious about that. Because let me tell you one thing about eclipses. Once you go through an eclipse, nothing is ever the same. I suppose on a positive note, if something is meant to be and you heal something with an ex, then maybe it will never, it's going to be like a new relationship. It won't be the relationship that it was. But this is no time for hanging on to the past. This is no time to hang on to things because it feels that they are secure. And we want that security because then we will lose the opportunity to really fling ourselves into this change and fling ourselves in to be liberated and to be free as individuals and all together. So fundamentally, it's very, very profound. Let me mention a couple of other things as well. Venus goes direct on the 25th, so the great Venus healing of our past intimate relationships, of our past relationships to abundance as well. All of that work is being done, so you can kind of maybe help shed that on this eclipse. But from the 25th, you'll feel much lighter when it comes to personal relationships. Of course, Mercury is retrograde, so there's a lot of confusion. But by the end of the month, we have our power back as we have Mars, the planet of action, going into its favourite place of Aries. So right now, there might be a lot of emotion surfacing, and there might be a lot of deep feelings. There's a lot of intensity around, but we are being enlightened. We're being enlightened about the future, thanks to the North Node, and where we want to go, where we should go, and that the future is going to be so different to the past. So I urge every soul to really honour your journey and have faith in your journey and know it's going to get better and know that we are galloping, all of us, towards our freedom. Take care, gorgeous, and I'll speak to you soon.